Introduction. What if your biggest enemy in trading is you? You know the setups, you've watched the videos, you've taken the courses, but when it's time to press that buy or sell button, your hands shake, your mind races, and your emotions take the wheel. Why? Because trading isn't just about charts and patterns. It's a brutal mirror. It shows you your fear, your ego, your greed, and it does it in real time. This book isn't about strategies, it's not about indicators. It's about the dark side of trading that no one warns you about, the emotional roller coaster that quietly destroys accounts, confidence, and lives. If you've ever overtraded out of boredom, doubled down to make it back, felt like a failure after one bad trade, wondered why you keep repeating the same mistakes, then this book is for you. Inside, we'll uncover the hidden mental traps traders fall into and how to break free. You won't just learn how to manage risk in the market, you'll learn how to manage yourself. Because in the end, your greatest edge isn't in your strategy, it's in your psychology. Let's face the truth together and finally take back control. Chapter 1. The Dopamine Trap. Have you ever opened your trading app in the morning and felt a little rush? That tiny jolt of excitement, like Christmas morning for adults? You know you shouldn't be that hype, it's just numbers on a screen. But still, you check it first thing, before brushing your teeth, before coffee, before saying good morning to your loved one. Welcome to the dopamine trap. Most traders think they're addicted to trading, but they're not. They're addicted to the possibility of being right, to the hope that this trade will finally make them feel like a genius, or rich, or worthy, or at least not like a complete idiot. The charts become our slot machines, our lottery tickets, our TikTok scrolls. And it's no accident. The brain chemicals behind all those habits are the same. Let me explain. The brain's trading desk. Meet dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter. In plain English, it's your brain's hype man. It's the reason you get excited about things that might happen, not the things that already happened, things that could. That's important. Most people think dopamine is the reward chemical, but it's not. It's the anticipation chemical. It fires before the reward, not after. That's why we don't get addicted to winning trades. We get addicted to the idea of what could happen if this trade wins. Sound familiar? You're not refreshing your screen 47 times an hour because you're being responsible. You're doing it because your brain is high on hope. You're chasing a dopamine spike. And just like a gambler at a blackjack table, you start to care more about the rush than the results. And that's where things start to fall apart. Hope is not a trading strategy, but we all try it. Here's a painful truth. Most traders don't trade their edge. They trade their emotions dressed up as logic. You enter a trade and immediately start praying. Please let it go up just 10 more pips. I'll close, I promise. You say it's technical analysis, but deep down, it's emotional roulette. And every time you hit a win after a risky trade, guess what? Your brain goes, see, that felt great. Let's do that again. You just trained yourself like Pavlov's dog. But instead of salivating at a bell, you're risking 30% of your account every time your RSI hits 70. That one lucky trade becomes a trap door. Because now you believe hope can be profitable, that you can break your rules and still win. Until one day it doesn't work. And that's when the real spiral begins. Losses hurt more than wins feel good. Thanks, evolution. There's another layer to this. Your brain is hardwired to avoid pain more than it seeks pleasure. It's a survival thing. Our ancestors weren't thinking about profit targets, they were trying not to get eaten by a lion. So in trading, a $100 loss feels way worse than a $100 gain feels good. That's why traders revenge trade. That's why they double down after a loss. That's why they say things like, I just need to break even today. Because breaking even isn't about money, it's about emotional balance.
You don't want to walk away feeling like a loser. You want your ego back. You want dopamine back. So you make emotional decisions wrapped in weak logic, fueled by pure survival instinct. And the market doesn't care. The illusion of control. Here's the scariest part of the dopamine trap. It makes you believe you're in control. You start creating little rituals. You only trade certain pairs on Thursdays. You wait for the MACD to feel right. You think your intuition is getting sharper. It's not. It's just your dopamine system convincing you that you're special, that you can feel the market's mood today, that you're aligned with the vibe of the candle. Spoiler alert, the market has no mood. It's not watching you, it's not playing games, it's not testing your patience. But dopamine wants a story. It wants a narrative. So it builds one for you, a neat little fiction where you're the hero and your trades are your epic quests. Meanwhile, your account balance slowly bleeds. Social media made it worse. 10 years ago, you had to look for trading dopamine. Today, it comes to you. Instagram reels of 22-year-olds in Dubai with Lambos flexing MetaTrader screenshots. YouTube thumbnails promising $500 to $50,000 in 30 days. TikTokers with 2-week demo accounts explaining how they cracked the Forex code. Your brain doesn't know the difference between real and fake wins. It just sees the lifestyle, the promise, the potential. And dopamine says, you could do that too, just one more trade. So you keep going, you chase, you hope. And hope becomes your dealer. What this looks like in real life, let's paint a picture. You wake up, no setup yet, but you're itching. You open TradingView, nothing aligns. But that candle looks strong. You squint, you justify, you convince yourself the setup is good enough. You enter the trade. Price moves against you, you sweat, you move your stop loss, then remove it completely because it's just temporary drawdown. Now you're down 3%. You can't close. You need it to reverse. You go to YouTube looking for confirmation. You find a guy saying bullish move incoming. You relax a little. You hold. It drops further. Now you're down 8%. The candle closes red. You close the laptop. You walk around the room like your house is suddenly 3 times smaller. You open the app again. Still down. You can't take it. You close the trade. 10 minutes later, price reverses. You scream into the void. Welcome to the dopamine hangover. How to escape the trap? Here's the good news. Dopamine isn't evil. It's just a chemical. But if you don't learn how to work with it, it'll work against you. The first step is awareness. Understand that most of your bad trades weren't because you lacked information. They were because you lacked emotional control. Start tracking not just your trades, but your emotions during each trade. Write down what you felt before entering, why you really entered, whether it was confidence, boredom, FOMO, or frustration. You'll start to notice patterns more powerful than any indicator. Second, build rules and follow them like a machine. Your brain will scream. It'll beg you to break them just this once. That's dopamine talking. Ignore it. Third, reduce your screen time. Seriously, you don't need to babysit your trades every second. Set alerts, walk away. The more you watch, the more you crave action, and action isn't always progress. Finally, focus on the process, not the outcome. Detach from wins and losses, because ironically, when you stop chasing dopamine, when you stop hoping, you start trading better. You trade cleaner, you think clearer, you become the trader your brain has been pretending you were all along. Chapter 2. Fear Dressed as Discipline. You ever stare at a perfect setup for 20 minutes, only to not take it? Then, as soon as price moves exactly where you thought it would, you slap your forehead and whisper, "I was being disciplined." Were you? Or were you just scared? Because here's the truth. A lot of traders walk around like they're disciplined samurais, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But in reality, they're just scared little ninjas, hiding behind rules they keep rewriting to avoid pulling the trigger. It's easy to mistake fear for discipline. Fear is quiet. It hides in logic. It puts on a suit and calls itself risk management. It whispers, "Let's wait for more confirmation," when deep down, you're just afraid to be wrong. Let's unpack this uncomfortable truth, because until you recognize fear wearing the mask of discipline, it'll keep stealing your trades, and you'll keep calling it self-control. When discipline becomes avoidance. Discipline is supposed to be a strength. In fact, every serious trader brags about it. I follow my rules. I never force trades. I wait for high probability setups. Sounds great, right? Sounds like a professional. But what if you start using those same phrases to justify inaction? What if waiting for the perfect setup becomes code for "I'm too afraid to lose again"? That's when discipline becomes avoidance. Here's how it usually plays out. You get burned on a couple of trades. Maybe it was your fault, maybe it wasn't. Either way, it hurt. Now you hesitate. You tighten up. You overanalyze. You say you're being careful, but you're really just trying not to feel that pain again. You tell yourself you're waiting for more confirmation, but when price finally confirms, it's already 60 pips away from your entry zone, and you don't chase because discipline, right? But let's be real. That wasn't discipline. That was fear in a fancy outfit, and you bought it. Fear is a master of disguise. Fear doesn't come into your trading room waving red flags. It sneaks in through back doors. It sounds rational, mature even. You're not scared, you're being patient. You're not afraid, you're waiting for more data. You're not nervous, you're just being extra cautious today. Yeah, okay. And I only eat ice cream for the calcium. The problem is, fear disguised as discipline can actually feel good. You feel responsible when you avoid a risky setup. You feel mature when you skip a trade that didn't check all 37 boxes on your checklist. But underneath that logic is the fear of being wrong. The fear of losing money. The fear of losing face. Even if you're alone in your room and the only person judging you is your cat. The worst part is this kind of fear rewards you. When you avoid a trade and it goes south, you feel like a genius. Good thing I didn't take that one. Discipline pays. But over time, this avoidance trains your brain to think inaction equals safety. And safety becomes your new strategy. Spoiler alert, safe traders don't win. Calculated traders do. The missed trade trauma. You know what hurts more than a loss? A missed win. That feeling when you stare at the chart hours later and see price hit your original target to the pip without you. You were right, but not wretch. Your analysis was perfect, but fear held you back. And now you're left with emotional whiplash, muttering things like, "Why do I even study if I don't execute? I knew it was going to move. Why didn't I trust myself?" Next time, huh? Until next time becomes next week. And next week becomes next month. And before you know it, you're just a professional chart analyst with no trades and a slowly dying passion. Because trading without execution is like writing songs you never sing. It's like cooking a meal and never eating it. Pointless, exhausting, frustrating. The myth of perfect confirmation. Let's talk about your favorite excuse, confirmation. Traders love confirmation. They say, "I just need a little more confirmation before I enter." Like they're talking about buying a house, not clicking a button. Here's the thing. Perfect confirmation does not exist. There will always be uncertainty. That's what makes it trading. If everything lined up with 100% clarity, there would be no profit to make, because everyone would already be in. But fear hates uncertainty. So it convinces you that waiting for confirmation is safer, even when it's not, even when the trade is long gone. Ironically, by the time you get all the confirmation you want, the trade is no longer high probability. It's exhausted. The train has left, and you're still on the platform holding your perfect plan. Fear comes from the past. Discipline comes from the plan. Let's draw the line clearly. Fear is emotional, reactive, based on past pain. It says, I got burned last time, so I'll be extra careful now. Discipline is logical, proactive, based on your plan. It says, I don't trade this setup because it doesn't meet my tested criteria. See the difference? Fear makes you pull back because of what already happened. Discipline makes you stay out because of what you've prepared for. One is reactive, the other is intentional. When fear is driving the car, you're always looking in the rearview mirror. When discipline is driving, you're following the GPS you built in advance. And guess what? The market doesn't care about your past. It only cares about how you act right now. Over-optimization is fear in a lab coat. You ever find yourself reworking your trading plan every week, adding more rules, more filters, more indicators? That's not you evolving. That's you scared. Fear convinces you that if you just tweak your strategy one more time, you'll finally have a system that never loses, that your drawdown will disappear, that you'll never make the same mistake again. But in trying to eliminate all risk, you eliminate all opportunity. You paralyze yourself with perfectionism. You drown in strategy instead of mastering execution. You keep optimizing, but never act. And your improvement becomes another excuse not to face the market. You can't outsmart emotion. You have to train through it. Here's where most traders go wrong. They try to think their way out of fear, but fear isn't logical. You can't outsmart it. You can only train through it. The only way to build true discipline is by doing what scares you, in controlled, repeated reps until it becomes normal. You're scared to execute on your plan? Do it anyway. Small size, one trade, no expectations. Log the emotion, then do it again tomorrow. Discipline isn't built in theory. It's built in action. You don't become a calm trader by avoiding fear. You become calm by facing fear over and over until it loses its grip. Think of it like going to the gym. The first few reps hurt, but you don't quit. You don't analyze the pain for hours. You just keep showing up. Eventually, the weight doesn't feel so heavy. Same with trading. The rule of real discipline. Here's how you know if you're truly being disciplined. Your decision matches your plan even when it feels uncomfortable. If it's comfortable, it's probably fear-based. If it's slightly uncomfortable but aligned with your rules, you're likely acting with real discipline. Because real discipline means pressing the button when everything in your body says, maybe just wait a little longer. It means taking the loss with no hesitation when your stop hits and not moving it just this once. It means walking away at your daily limit even when the next setup looks so juicy. That's discipline. Not because it feels good, but because it's right. Chapter 3. The Ego Account. Ever stayed in a losing trade way too long, just because you didn't want to admit you were wrong? Yeah, welcome to the ego account. It's not the one you open with your broker. It's the silent one you carry inside your mind, the one where every loss feels like a personal insult and every win feels like a shot of self-worth. It's where trading stops being a skill and becomes an identity contest. And trust me, this account has ruined more traders than bad setups ever could. The truth is, most traders don't lose money because their strategies suck. They lose because their ego shows up with a superhero cape, whispering, "Don't worry, you're smarter than the market." And like a fool in a Marvel movie with no powers, they go head-to-head with the market and get absolutely bodied. Let's dive into this emotional battleground and see why the biggest losses often come not from charts, but from pride. Ego wants to be right, not profitable. Your ego doesn't care about your account balance. It cares about being right. Let that sink in. You could be down $400 on a trade, and the ego will scream, "Hold on, it's just retracing, it'll come back," even though your stop loss was hit 10 minutes ago, and you've already moved it twice. The trade no longer makes sense, but your ego is in control now, and the ego hates to lose. It's not just money on the line anymore, it's your identity. Because if this trade fails, it confirms your worst fear. Maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. So instead of taking the loss like a professional, you take it personally. You hold longer. You look for YouTube videos to confirm your bias. You reanalyze the chart through a magical new lens where everything still looks bullish, even though price has been dumping for hours. You're not trading the market anymore. You're trading your ego. The need to win every time. There's a dirty little lie most traders tell themselves. I just hate losing. Sounds noble. Sounds like you're competitive, like you're pushing yourself to excellence. But it's not that. What you actually hate is being wrong. See, if you really hated losing, you'd cut losses early. You'd follow your stop-loss rules to the letter. You'd manage risk like a surgeon and live to trade another day. But that's not what happens. Instead, you widen your stop. You hold through pain. You double down. Because deep down, you're more interested in protecting your image of being right than protecting your actual capital. This is how ego bankrupts traders. And it does it slowly, with convincing logic and emotional seduction. Overtrading is ego in hyperdrive. Ever had a losing day and thought, I'll just take one more trade to make it back? And then 5 trades later, you're down twice as much. Yeah, that's the ego account running on Red Bull and denial. Overtrading is your ego's last-ditch attempt to reclaim control. You feel out of sync with the market. Your plan is a distant memory, but your ego refuses to accept a red day. It's personal now. You're not even trying to make money. You're trying to get revenge. And here's the dangerous part. Sometimes it works. You hit that one perfect scalp, close green, and suddenly your ego feels like a hero again. That random lucky win becomes your new addiction. You tell yourself, I just needed one more chance, when in reality, you just got lucky. And your ego files that moment into a mental folder called, I got this. Next time, you go bigger. You risk more. You try to outsmart the market with force. And the market, as always, humbles you. It has to come back. This phrase should be carved into the gravestones of 1 million blown accounts. It has to come back. The most dangerous 5 words in trading. Here's what's really happening. You're in a losing trade. You know you should close it, but closing it means accepting you were wrong, and that burns. That bruises the ego. So what does the ego do? It rewrites the rules. You were scalping, now it's a swing trade. Your stop loss got hit, it was just noise. The trend changed? Nah, it's just consolidating. Every justification you make isn't based on logic, it's based on emotional damage control. The ego isn't analyzing the chart, it's trying to protect its pride. You're not trading anymore. You're negotiating with reality. The identity problem. One of the sneakiest ways ego shows up in trading is through identity attachment. You start to become your trading results. Have a green week? You feel invincible. Post screenshots online. Celebrate your edge. Maybe even start planning your exit from your 9-to-5. Have a red week? You spiral. You doubt everything. You question your intelligence, your strategy, your future. You feel worthless. This emotional swing happens because you've tied your self-worth to your trades. You think if you lose, you're a loser. If you win, you're a winner. But here's the truth. You are not your P&L. Your self-worth should not be measured by a chart. You're a trader, not a prophet, not a magician. You will be wrong a lot, and that's okay. In fact, the best traders are wrong often. They just don't take it personally. They manage it, accept it, and move on. The ones who can't are the ones whose ego drags them down with every red candle. The moment everything shifts. There's a strange but powerful moment in every trader's journey. The day you stop needing to be right. It doesn't happen overnight, but when it clicks, everything changes. You stop arguing with the chart. You stop chasing revenge trades. You start respecting stop losses. You begin to focus on execution instead of outcome. That's when losses don't sting as much because they're just part of the process. You no longer need every trade to validate you as a person. You stop feeding your ego. And when you stop feeding it, it stops interfering. That's when trading becomes easier, not because the market changed, but because you did. Humility is the ultimate trading edge. Want to know the most underrated skill in trading? Humility. Not "I suck" humility, not false modesty, but real, grounded, ego-free humility. The kind that says, "I don't know what the market will do next, but I'm prepared for any outcome." The kind that cuts losses early, that walks away on a red day, that doesn't chase, doesn't force, doesn't flex. Because here's the thing. Ego is loud. Ego needs to prove something. But humility is quiet, steady, strong. It has nothing to prove, so it doesn't overreact. It doesn't panic. It doesn't need to win today to feel good tomorrow. And that calm, quiet mindset, that's your real edge. Real confidence versus ego confidence. Let's clear this up because they look similar, but they couldn't be more different. Ego confidence is fragile. It's loud, flashy, and reactive. It boasts during wins and crumbles during losses. It needs external proof. It lives for screenshots, bragging rights, and green days. Real confidence is stable. It's quiet, consistent, and grounded in process. It doesn't change based on one trade. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't fear red days because it knows the long game is what matters. Which one are you building? Because every day you trade, you're feeding one or the other. Learning to lose. This sounds crazy, but it might be the most important trading lesson of all. You have to learn how to lose. If you can't lose well, you'll never win long term. Losing is part of the business, just like inventory loss in retail or a missed shot in basketball. But in trading, every loss feels personal, unless you've trained your ego to stand down. When you learn how to lose, you stop needing to win. You stop taking trades that don't make sense. You start focusing on execution instead of outcome. That's when you shift from gambling to trading, from emotional to professional, from fragile to powerful. Chapter 4. The Burnout Loop. There's a point in every trader's journey where you stop trading the market and start trading your own guilt. You know the phase I'm talking about. You've lost a few trades, okay, maybe more than a few, and instead of stepping back to reset, you decide to double down. You stay up late watching backtest videos. You binge every trading podcast on Spotify. You rewatch the same ICT mentorship videos 3 times because maybe you missed the key. You start acting like a monk. No Netflix, no social life. You cancel dinner plans to study the charts. You're not even trading anymore. You're obsessing, convincing yourself that if you just grind hard enough, success will magically show up and reward your suffering. Spoiler alert, it doesn't. You keep trading, keep losing, keep studying, keep failing, and before you know it, you're not just broke, you're burned out. Welcome to the burnout loop. It's a silent trap, and it doesn't just kill your trading account, It kills your confidence, your creativity, your energy, and, ironically, your ability to actually improve. Let's break this down before you burn yourself out trying to study your way to the top. The hustle lie. More effort doesn't equal better results. Most of us grew up in a world that worships hard work. Hustle culture told us that if we're not grinding 12 hours a day, we don't deserve success. It said, work harder than everyone else and you'll win. Sounds noble, right? It works in school, it works in sports, it works in business. But in trading, it'll kill you. Because trading isn't effort-based, it's execution-based. It's not about how hard you try, it's about how well you wait, how calm you stay, how consistently you stick to your plan under pressure. You can't brute force your way to profits. You can't study more to become emotionally bulletproof. You can't cram chart patterns like exam notes and expect the market to hand you an A+. The market doesn't reward hustle. It rewards patience and discipline. But when you're in the burnout loop, you're not patient. You're panicked. You're trying to outwork a problem that can only be outgrown. The invisible weight of self-pressure. You ever sit at your desk, charts open, heart racing, not because of the market, but because you feel like you have to trade? Like, if you don't catch a setup today, you're falling behind. Like every green candle is a missed opportunity. Like every red day means you're not good enough yet. That pressure, that's not coming from the market. It's coming from you. You've created a mental scoreboard where every loss is failure and every day without a trade is wasted time. You've turned trading into an emotional performance test where you have to prove every day that you're getting closer. This pressure is subtle but deadly, because the more pressure you put on yourself, the more emotional your decisions become. And the more emotional you become, the worse you trade. Then you lose. Then you feel guilty. So you double down. More study, more screen time, more backtesting, more sleepless nights. And just like that, you're deep in the burnout loop, confusing obsession with improvement. The information overload spiral. In the beginning, trading seems simple. Buy low, sell high. Find the trend, respect risk. Then you find YouTube. Suddenly there are 4-hour chart gurus, volume profile prophets, smart money legends. Everyone's making money, and no two people are doing it the same way. So you consume it all, and your brain starts to fry. One day, you're convinced price action is the holy grail. The next, you swear by order blocks. Then you fall into Fibonacci. Then it's Wyckoff. Then it's ICT. Then it's back to price action because, hey, maybe you just weren't doing it right the first time. It never ends. You start to feel like you always need more information, like the only reason you're losing is because you haven't learned the final secret yet. But here's the truth no one tells you. Learning more isn't always improving. Sometimes it's avoidance, a distraction, a way to feel productive when you're really just scared to face the simplicity of what trading actually is. Because once you know enough, it's not about learning more. It's about applying with consistency. But applying is hard because it means you're responsible. And being responsible means there's no more hiding. So instead of applying, you keep studying, and you stay stuck. Trading as a full-time prison. Here's the ironic part. Most traders start trading to gain freedom. Freedom from the 5 to 9, freedom to work from anywhere, freedom to control your time, your income, your future. But when you're deep in burnout mode, trading doesn't feel like freedom at all. It feels like a cage. You're chained to your desk, glued to your screen. You can't enjoy dinner without checking the charts. You can't sleep because your mind is backtesting candle patterns. You don't go out anymore, not because you don't want to, but because you feel guilty for not working. It's not freedom. It's mental jail. And the crazy part is, you put yourself in there. No boss forced you. No deadline did this. You created your own pressure. You built your own prison. And then you called it discipline. That's not trading. That's burnout, dressed as hustle. The myth of earning your profits. A lot of traders secretly believe that if they suffer long enough, the market will eventually reward them. That if they stay up late every night, study every indicator, take every loss on the chin, the market will one day smile and say, "You've suffered enough. Here's your 10-hour winner." But the market isn't apparent. It doesn't care how hard you tried. You don't earn profits through pain. You earn them through process. And if your process includes chronic sleep deprivation, emotional breakdowns, and caffeine-fueled anxiety, you're not building a trading career. You're building a breakdown. The real danger: losing passion. Burnout doesn't just drain your energy, it steals your joy. And when trading stops being exciting, when it feels like a job you hate, one that pays nothing but demands everything, you lose your edge. You stop being creative, you stop being curious, you stop wanting to trade. And that's the real loss, not the money, not the drawdown. The loss of passion. The loss of the why that got you into this in the first place. The day trading becomes a chore is the day you lose the game, even if your account is still alive. Because your account might recover, but your mind, that's much harder. Signs you're stuck in the burnout loop. Let's be real. Most traders don't even know they're burned out. They just think they're slacking or not grinding hard enough. Here's a gut check. If you feel anxious when you're not trading, if you feel guilty taking breaks, if you watch videos about trading more than you actually trade, if you're constantly switching strategies and never feel like ready, if you're emotionally exhausted but can't stop opening the charts, you're not lazy. You're not weak. You're burned out. And that means it's time to reset, not grind harder. The power of strategic rest. Here's the part no trading course will ever tell you. Sometimes doing nothing is the most productive thing you can do. Taking a break is not quitting. Closing the charts for a weekend is not failure. Rest is part of the process. Clarity needs space. Emotional stability needs breathing room. Insight doesn't come from staring at candles for 9 hours. It comes from stepping back and letting your brain breathe. You're not a robot. You're not a machine. You can't perform at peak levels 7 days a week just because you want it bad enough. Even athletes take off seasons. Why shouldn't you? Rebuilding after burnout. Climbing out of the burnout loop takes humility, it takes honesty, and it takes a plan. Start by simplifying everything. Strip your strategy down to the basics. Focus on one setup, one session, one type of trade. Cut the noise. Set trading hours and stick to them. No more staring at the screen from London Open to New York close. Trade your time window, then walk away. Reintroduce joy. Listen to music. Go for walks. Touch grass. Seriously. Reconnect with people who remind you that there's more to life than your MT4 terminal. And most importantly, forgive yourself. You're not behind. You're human. Burnout isn't weakness. It's just a signal, a loud one. And if you listen to it, it might just guide you back to balance and better trading. Chapter 5. Lonely at the Screen. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. When's the last time you had a real conversation with someone and you didn't start the sentence with, "So I took this trade today"? If you're anything like most traders, your world is shrinking. Your screen knows more about your mood than your friends do. You spend your days in silence, watching candles form and fall apart like fragile relationships. Your emotional support system is a Discord server. Your closest companion, probably the blinking cursor in your trading journal, or your cat who thinks your monitor is his personal heater. This chapter isn't about candlesticks, entry models, or Fibonacci levels. It's about something darker, something quieter, something no one posts about in Telegram groups. The isolation, the loneliness, the quiet mental erosion that comes from trading alone. Because no one claps when you're sitting by yourself, staring at red candles, fighting your own thoughts. There's no applause for doing the right thing when no one's watching. No high five when you stick to your plan, take a small loss, and go back to your desk with a stomach full of doubt and a head full of noise. This is the part of trading no one talks about because it doesn't look good in screenshots. But it's real, and it's stealing more traders' potential than blown accounts ever could. The solitude no one warned you about. When you started trading, you probably imagined freedom. Beach laptop, coffee shop setups, work from anywhere vibes. But here's what it actually looks like. A dim room, blinds half closed, silence so thick you can hear your heartbeat. You're glued to the screen, waiting for a candle to break a line you drew 3 hours ago, while the rest of the world lives their life. Your friends are out grabbing brunch. Your mom's calling to ask why you never pick up anymore. Your old coworkers are talking about Netflix shows and baby showers. And you're talking to yourself about liquidity sweeps. That's the hidden cost of trading. You get silence in exchange for control. No coworkers, no boss, no team meetings, just you and your own mind every single day. And your mind? Not always a friendly place. Alone with your demons. Here's the thing no course prepares you for. When you trade alone, you're not just facing the market, you're facing yourself. Every insecurity, every self-doubt, every flaw you've buried under productivity or social distraction, it shows up in front of that chart. You think you're just battling price action, but really, you're battling that little voice in your head saying, "Why do you always mess this up? You're never going to make this work. Maybe you're just not built for this." The charts don't yell at you. Your inner critic does. And when you're alone for long enough, with no one to challenge that voice, you start to believe it. That's how trading becomes not just mentally exhausting, but emotionally dangerous. Because every loss feels like personal proof that you're failing at life. Every missed trade feels like another reason you're not enough. And the silence only makes it louder. The comparison disease. You're already alone, but thanks to social media, you also feel behind. Because while you're journaling a negative 1-hour loss and wondering if you should just get a job at Target, some 22-year-old on Instagram is posting screenshots of a $3,000 win with a caption like, "Risk management is key, #Forex life." And you hate him, but you also secretly want to be him. So you scroll more, watch more win videos, see more Lambos, more Rolexes, more palm trees, more money emojis, more smiles. And you feel smaller. You forget that people only post their wins. You forget that no one shows the red days, the crying in the shower moments, the full-blown breakdowns after 5 trades in a row go against them. You forget that for every post you see, there's a silent trader somewhere staring at the ceiling, wondering if they'll ever break even. Comparison is the thief of joy, but in trading, it also robs you of sanity. You start thinking you're the problem, that you're not working hard enough, that success is passing you by while you sit in your room refreshing your MetaTrader 4 app. It's not just loneliness now, it's self-hate. And that is lethal. When trading feels like a secret life. Ever try explaining what you do to someone outside of trading? So you just click buttons and hope the price goes up? Yeah, thanks, Uncle Jeff. Very insightful. The truth is, trading is so niche, so misunderstood, that it starts to feel like a secret identity. You're Batman, but instead of fighting crime, you're fighting breakouts and fake-outs. And just like Bruce Wayne, no one in your regular life understands what you're going through. You can't talk to your friends about your red week. You can't explain to your parents that you did work today, even though you didn't make any money. You can't call your coworker to celebrate a +2-hour day because you don't have coworkers anymore. And that emotional isolation builds up. It turns into shame, frustration, and even resentment. You start pulling away from people, not because you don't care, but because it's easier to be alone than to try and explain this strange, high-stakes, emotionally chaotic world you're living in. The depression behind the candles. Let's call it what it is. Trading can be depressing. When you go through long periods of drawdown or even flat results, when you start questioning your entire life because you're sitting in your room bleeding capital while your friends are buying houses and having kids, it's not just hard, it's dark. You start avoiding mirrors, your sleep schedule gets wrecked, you stop replying to texts, you skip meals or binge them, You stop doing the little things that used to bring you joy, and everything feels numb. But you keep going because quitting would mean admitting failure. And if you're not a trader, then who are you? This is where trading becomes not just a mental skill game, but a soul game. Because if you don't catch yourself, this isolation can drag you so deep into your own head that you forget you're even human. The importance of community. Let's be real. You don't need 50 mentors. You don't need another indicator. You don't need one more premium YouTube playlist. You need people. People who get it. People who have sat in your chair and stared at that same stubborn red candle. People who know what it feels like to win big and feel nothing, or lose small and feel like a complete fraud. Community doesn't have to mean a signal group. In fact, it shouldn't mean that. It means real conversations, real connection, real support. Even one trading buddy you can message after a bad day can change everything. Someone who says, "Hey, it's just one trade. You're still on the path." Or, "Same thing happened to me yesterday. Let's regroup." Because when you're trading alone, the market feels like your enemy. But when you're supported, it just feels like data. Rebuilding a life outside the charts. Here's a crazy idea. What if trading wasn't your whole identity? What if you had hobbies again? What if you played basketball on Saturdays or baked bread or went hiking without obsessively checking your phone? What if you actually lived again? Because the best traders I know aren't obsessed. They're stable. They're well-rounded. They have real lives and real relationships and real joy outside of trading. That balance? It's not optional. It's essential. Because trading will test your emotions. It will stress your mind. And if you don't have emotional reserves, if you don't have life to fall back on, it will eat you alive. You need people. You need purpose. You need perspective. And none of those live inside a candlestick.
Chapter 6. The Illusion of Control. Let's start with a brutal truth. You are not in control. You're not in control of the market. You're not in control of the news cycle. You're not in control of that random 100-pip candle that violates every rule of logic and smacks your stop-loss like it owes money. But you know what is in your control? Your illusion that you're in control. And that is the most dangerous part. Because in trading, nothing will mess you up faster than believing you can outsmart randomness. You think you're being strategic. You think you're analyzing data. But half the time, you're just dressing up your hope in a fancy trading journal and calling it edge. Let's dive into the messy, unpredictable truth of the market and why real control doesn't come from gripping harder, but from letting go. Control is comfort food for the mind. Most of us were raised to believe that the harder we try, the more we can control the outcome. Study hard, pass the test. Work hard, get the raise. Wake up early, win the day. Simple, linear equations. Then comes trading. You follow your rules. You spot a clean setup. You time the entry perfectly. You manage risk. You're a responsible adult. And the market says, "Cute, here's a loss." What happens next is where the illusion begins. Instead of accepting the randomness, you start adjusting. You move the stop a little next time. You avoid trading that session. You add an extra indicator. You convince yourself that if you just refine the system, you'll finally gain control. You don't realize you're playing whack-a-mole with chaos. The market is not a vending machine. You don't insert strategy and expect snacks. It's a complex, irrational, probabilistic ecosystem that doesn't care how many hours you spent on YouTube. Trying to control it is like trying to control the weather with a stern look and a color-coded trading plan. The strategy trap. Every trader goes through a phase where they believe the right strategy will solve everything. You think the problem is your system, so you search, and you search, and you backtest. You buy 5 courses. You spend a full weekend learning about fair value gaps or liquidity sweeps or smart money traps. You convince yourself that if you just find the right combination of tools, patterns, and rules, you'll be safe.
This is the illusion of control at its finest. Because you're not seeking profitability. You're seeking certainty. You want to eliminate randomness. You want to eliminate doubt. You want to feel like you're smarter than the market, like you found the cheat code that others missed. But there is no cheat code. There is no ultimate strategy. There is only risk, edge, and probability. That's it. No strategy in the world protects you from randomness. But your ego keeps whispering that there's one out there. So you search, you tweak, you backtest yourself into burnout. All because you can't accept the truth. There is no certainty, only preparation. Risk management is the great lie of control. Ah, yes, risk management, the holy grail of responsible trading. You tell yourself you've mastered it. I only risk 1% per trade, you say, proud as a parent at graduation. But here's the plot twist. Risk management is still a form of control illusion, just with a better costume. Because deep down, most traders don't use risk management to manage risk. They use it to feel safe. It becomes a security blanket. If I follow these rules, I won't feel pain. Until the day comes where you follow every rule and still get smacked with 3 losses in a row. Then you start asking yourself wild questions. Should I reduce my risk even more? Maybe I should change my stop-loss logic. What if I avoid trading that session altogether? You're trying to control the uncontrollable. Risk management is not about removing risk. It's about accepting it and surviving anyway. It's a seatbelt, not a guarantee. And no seatbelt saves you from a plane crash. The market doesn't care about your rules. Let me tell you about one of the most humbling trades of my career. I was trading gold, beautiful setup, textbook breakout, perfect confluence. I'd been tracking it all week, everything aligned. I placed the trade, entered with sniper timing. My risk was managed, my confidence through the roof. 3 minutes later, a tweet from a random central bank official nuked the entire setup. Boom. Stop hit, loss taken, pride shattered, confidence humbled. And I sat there stunned, not because I lost. I've lost many times, but because I did everything right and still got wrecked. That's when I realized the market doesn't care about your rules. It doesn't care about your strategy. It doesn't care about your confluence. It doesn't care about your self-talk, your affirmations, your backtesting hours, or your emotional journaling habit. It moves how it moves, and your job is to respond, not control. Letting go is a power move. The moment you accept that you don't have control is the moment you get your power back. Weird, right? Because letting go sounds like weakness, like surrender, like giving up. But in trading, surrender is strength. Letting go of the need to be right gives you permission to cut losses quickly. Letting go of the need to control outcomes gives you the freedom to trust your plan. Letting go of the ego allows you to play the long game instead of chasing perfection. You can't control the market, but you can control your reaction to it. You can't control what price does next, but you can control whether or not you overreact. And that tiny shift from control to response is where real power begins. Probabilities versus predictions. Traders who crave control tend to become predictors. They think their job is to know what will happen next. So they draw 18 support lines, check 4 time frames, whisper to Fibonacci, and place a trade with this inner confidence that screams, "I know where price is going." But trading isn't about knowing. It's about managing probabilities. Once you realize that every trade is just a probability bet, you stop trying to be a prophet and start acting like a risk manager. You stop saying, "I'm sure it'll go up," and start saying, "If it goes up, I benefit, and if it doesn't, I cut." Control-seeking traders are devastated by losses. Probability-based traders expect them. Control-seeking traders take it personally when price hits their stop. Probability-based traders shrug, log it, and move on. Which one are you? Because the market doesn't reward predictions. It rewards preparation. Chaos is not your enemy. You know what's funny? The very thing you're trying to control, chaos, is the thing that makes trading possible. If the market was logical, predictable, and neatly packaged, there would be no opportunity. Everyone would win. There would be no edge, no movement, no liquidity. The market needs irrationality. It needs emotion. It needs chaos because that's where the inefficiencies live. That's where you get paid. But instead of accepting that, you resist it. You try to tame it, smooth it, box it into a predictable formula. All while the chaos just keeps doing its thing. Dancing around your expectations, teasing your ego, humbling your assumptions. You want to beat it? Stop fighting it. Start flowing with it. Because chaos isn't your enemy. It's your playing field. Real control lives within. Here's where we bring it full circle. You can't control the market. You can't control the candles. You can't control the news. You can't even control whether your setup works. But you can control a few sacred things. Your risk, your discipline, your patience, your response to uncertainty. That's where your control lives. Not in the market, not in the outcome, but in your behavior. The traders who survive and thrive are the ones who stop trying to be magicians and start becoming masters of themselves. They don't try to predict. They prepare, they adapt, they stay centered. That's what real control looks like.
Chapter 7. Trauma in the Charts. Have you ever stared at a chart, felt your heart race, your palms sweat, and your mouse hand tremble, and thought, why am I acting like I'm being chased by a lion when I'm just watching a red candle form? Welcome to the emotional minefield of trading. Here's a truth no one talks about in those 10x your risk to reward YouTube videos. Sometimes your trading has nothing to do with the market and everything to do with your past. That impulse to move your stop loss, that panic after a small loss, that obsession with getting back at the market. Those aren't strategy flaws. They're emotional flashbacks. Because your brain doesn't separate trading losses from other kinds of pain. And for many of us, the charts become a mirror, reflecting old trauma, buried shame, and unresolved fear that we never even knew we were carrying. So today, we're not talking indicators. We're talking invisible baggage, the emotional stuff you brought into trading, quietly sitting in the background, hijacking your decisions and wrecking your discipline. The market isn't just data, it's a trigger. Let's get one thing straight. The market is neutral. It's just price moving up and down based on global inputs, supply and demand, and a whole lot of chaos. But to your brain, that price action can feel very personal. Why? Because the human brain doesn't see risk the way machines do. It links risk of money loss with risk of survival. Back in caveman times, if you lost your resources, you didn't just take an L, you probably died. Your brain evolved to treat any form of loss as danger. Now fast forward to modern trading. You're in a warm apartment, drinking coffee, analyzing gold pairs in your underwear. But the moment your trade goes 30 pips against you, your brain sounds the alarm like a bear is chasing you. You're not reacting to the market. You're reacting to a threat, even if it's just psychological. And if you've got unresolved emotional baggage, that threat doesn't just come from the current chart. It comes from your past. Childhood wounds and adult trades.
Let me tell you about one of my students. We'll call him Jake. Smart guy, hardworking, but he had one problem. He couldn't hold a winning trade. He'd enter perfectly. Price would go in his favor. But the moment he was up even 0.5 R, he'd close the trade early, every single time. I asked him why. He said, "I don't want to lose what I've got." And when we dug deeper, we uncovered something wild. When Jake was a kid, his family lost their house during the 2008 financial crisis. One day, he had a home. The next day, gone. So now, as a grown man, every time he was in profit, his nervous system screamed, "It could all vanish. Better take it while it's still there." You see what happened there? The chart wasn't the issue. The setup wasn't the issue. His past trauma, that was the issue. And Jake isn't alone. I've met traders who chase losses because they were always told they weren't good enough, overtrade because they grew up in chaos and now crave action, refuse to take trades because they fear failure thanks to perfectionist parents, go into a mental spiral over a small loss because it mirrors old feelings of rejection. You don't leave your childhood at the door when you open MetaTrader. You bring it with you. Emotional echoes in the charts. So how do these past experiences show up? It's sneaky. That overwhelming fear when you lose 2 trades in a row, that's not just bad psychology. It might be echoing your past. A parent who made you feel worthless when you made mistakes. Maybe you were mocked for trying and failing. Maybe you learned that failure equals shame. So now, as a trader, you avoid it at all costs, even if it means never entering at all. Again, this isn't strategy. It's survival. Greed isn't just greed. Let's talk about greed for a second. Most traders think greed is just wanting more money. I stayed in too long because I got greedy. But what if greed is just a trauma response in disguise? What if your greed is actually desperation, born from a place of never feeling like you had enough? Maybe you grew up poor. Maybe you always saw your parents worry about bills. Maybe no matter how much you achieved, it never felt safe. So now, even in trading, you can't let go. You chase. You risk too much. You size up irresponsibly. Not because you're a bad trader, but because part of you is still trying to escape the fear of not having enough. That's not greed. That's wounding. And if you don't heal it, you'll keep chasing windfalls that vanish and wondering why you self-sabotage the moment things finally go well. Fear isn't just market-based. On the flip side, let's talk about fear. You know the type, the trader who double-checks the setup 50 times, who hesitates every entry, who gets paralyzed even when the signal is screaming "Enter." They say they're being cautious, but really, it's not market fear. It's personal fear. Fear of being wrong, fear of looking stupid, fear of making a mistake and getting punished for it. That's not trading fear. That's childhood trauma. Maybe every time you made a mistake growing up, someone made you feel small. Maybe you were mocked for trying and failing. Maybe you learned that failure equals shame. So now, as a trader, you avoid it at all costs, even if it means never entering at all. Again, this isn't strategy. It's survival. The revenge trade is a cry for justice. Ever blown a full week's profit on a single revenge trade? Of course you have. We all have. It starts with a bad loss, maybe even an unfair one. Maybe price wicked you out by 1 pip and then ran straight to your take profit. You feel cheated, robbed, offended. You tell yourself, "I'll get it back." And you force the next trade. You chase, you size up, you try to punish the market for what it did. Sound familiar? That's not just poor risk management. That's a trauma loop. Somewhere in your psyche, the market didn't just cost you money. It triggered your old injustice wound. The part of you that feels life has been unfair, that bad things shouldn't happen without consequences, that when you get hurt, someone should pay. In that moment, the chart stops being a financial graph and becomes your personal battlefield. But here's the tragedy. The market doesn't care. It doesn't apologize. It doesn't right wrongs. It doesn't give you one back for emotional balance. The more you chase justice from the market, the more chaos you invite into your account. You can't out-trade your trauma. Let me say this with love. You can't out-strategize your emotional wounds. You can have the cleanest setup, the best risk to reward, the most disciplined journal. But if you're carrying unhealed trauma, you'll still sabotage yourself. Because no amount of technical knowledge will fix a psychological war you haven't named. If your self-worth is tied to your win rate, you're in trouble. If your childhood shame gets activated every time you're wrong, no indicator will save you. You don't need more backtesting. You need more self-awareness. Trading doesn't just test your strategy, it tests your soul. And if your soul is hurting, it'll bleed into your trades. Healing makes you dangerous. In a good way. Here's the good news. Once you name your patterns, you can change them. You can start asking questions like, why did that loss trigger me so deeply? What emotion did I feel when I took that revenge trade? What does this trade remind me of, outside of trading? These questions don't just make you a better person, they make you a better trader. Because healed traders are dangerous. Not in the blow your account way, in the I can sit through discomfort without flinching way. When you've done the emotional work, you no longer trade to prove your worth. You no longer panic when things go against you. You no longer let old wounds dictate current behavior. You become calm, focused, and rational. And that is what consistent profitability is built on.
Chapter 8. Healing the Inner Trader. You don't need another setup. You need emotional rehab. So here we are. 8 chapters in, you've been through the shadows, the rage, the fear, the loneliness, the trauma. You've stared into the psychological abyss that hides beneath every trading screen. And if you've made it this far, I know one thing about you. You're not just here to get better at trading. You're here to get better at being you. That's what this chapter is about. Because the truth is, you don't need another candlestick pattern. You don't need another strategy. You don't need to level up your indicators. What you do need is something most traders never talk about: emotional rehab. You need to clean out the noise in your head. You need to confront the fear in your body. You need to meet the part of you that panics, that chases, that doubts, and that tries to prove its worth through profit. And you need to tell that part, it's okay. You're safe now. Because healing your inner trader doesn't just improve your win rate. It transforms your life. Trading is a mirror, not a monster. Most traders treat the market like a monster. They say things like, the market hates me, or the market always fakes me out, or I swear it waits until I enter to flip direction. But the market isn't out to get you. It's not a villain. It doesn't care who you are. It's just a mirror, reflecting who you are when pressure hits. If you're anxious, the chart reflects anxiety. If you're greedy, the chart brings out your worst impulses. If you're insecure, the chart will make you question your existence. And here's the crazy part. That's not a flaw in trading. That's a gift. Because what other job gives you a real-time, unfiltered look at your nervous system? What other pursuit forces you to confront your fear, your trauma, your ego, your desire to control, your fear of missing out, your fear of being wrong, and your hunger to be right, all before lunch? Trading is your spiritual gym. It forces you to grow,
or quit. And if you're reading this, I already know you chose to grow. But what does healing look like? Let's get practical. Emotional healing isn't just a concept, it's a process. And for traders, it doesn't look like journaling sad thoughts or doing breath work between candles, although hey, no shame if that helps. It looks like self-awareness on steroids. It looks like noticing the urge to revenge trade and stopping yourself. It looks like taking a deep breath after a loss instead of refreshing your account balance 37 times. It looks like walking away from the chart when you know your nervous system is fried. It looks like saying, I don't need to make money today to feel like I matter. And sometimes it looks like crying, like breaking, like finally admitting that this isn't just about money, it's about identity. Because for most traders, it's never really been about the profit. It's been about proving something. To yourself, to your dad, to your high school teacher, to your ex, to the version of you that didn't believe you were enough. But let me tell you something bold. You're already enough. Even when you lose, even when you miss the move, even when your equity curve looks like a dying heartbeat on a hospital monitor. You are still whole. Trading doesn't define you. You define how you trade. And that starts with healing. Emotional fitness is trading alpha. People love to talk about alpha in trading, as in outperformance. They say, what's your edge? How do you generate alpha? What makes you better than the 95%? You know what no one ever says? My emotional regulation is my alpha. But let me tell you, the most profitable traders I know are not the most aggressive, or the smartest, or the most technical. They're the calmest. They're emotionally fit. They don't panic when price wicks. They don't get euphoric after wins. They don't fall apart after losses. They stay grounded, present, focused. And guess what? That's not because they're superhuman. It's because they've done the inner work. They've trained their emotions the same way athletes train their muscles. They've built resilience. They've learned to sit with discomfort. They've created habits that serve their nervous system, not sabotage it. They meditate. They journal. They sleep. They eat right. They breathe. They know when to walk away. That's the new alpha. And it's more powerful than any technical analysis you'll ever learn. What's your emotional routine? If you have a trading routine but no emotional routine, you're playing with fire. You wake up, you check the charts, you plot your zones, but are you checking yourself? Do you know your emotional temperature before you enter a trade? Do you know what mindset you're in when you're about to size up? Do you notice when you're trading to feel good instead of trading your plan? These are the things that separate amateurs from professionals. You think pro traders are out here reading 17 indicators per trade? No. They're managing energy. They're managing focus. They're managing self. They know the biggest risk isn't market volatility, it's emotional volatility. So if you really want to heal, build a routine that puts you in check. Before every session, ask, am I calm or am I chasing something today? Do I need to prove something or am I here to execute? And if you don't like the answer, maybe it's not a day to trade. The power of walking away. I'm going to say something radical. Sometimes the most profitable trade you'll ever make is the one you don't take. And I don't mean that in the you avoided a loss sense. I mean you chose your mental health over your need to prove something. You walked away. You went for a walk. You called your mom. You cooked a meal. You breathed. You didn't sit there stewing in cortisol trying to force the chart to redeem you. That's growth. That's maturity. That's emotional intelligence. And here's the beautiful part. The market will still be there tomorrow. You don't need to milk it dry in one session. You're not a hamster on a profit wheel. You're a human being with needs, with limits, with a nervous system that wasn't designed to watch red and green flicker for 8 hours a day. Respect that. Trade like someone who loves themselves. You know how you can tell when a trader is still hurting? They trade like they hate themselves. They overtrade, they revenge trade, they risk too much. They punish themselves after losses. They speak to themselves with the same tone a toxic parent would. You idiot, you always mess it up. You're never going to make it. That's not a trader talking. That's a wound talking. Healing means shifting that voice. It means trading like someone who actually cares about themselves. You still take losses, you still make mistakes, but the tone changes. It becomes, okay, that one didn't work. Let's log it, learn from it, and move forward. It becomes, one red day doesn't define me. It becomes, I trust myself even when I lose. That shift alone can change your trading career. Because when you stop trying to prove your worth through P&L and start treating trading as a craft you're mastering with love and patience, you stop self-sabotaging. You start showing up with power. Long-term mental wealth. You didn't get into trading to feel miserable. You got into it for freedom. But what kind of freedom is it if you're emotionally wrecked, addicted to your screen, isolated from friends, and spiraling after every losing day? That's not freedom. That's prison. Healing the inner trader means building a life where trading supports your well-being instead of draining it. It means setting boundaries. It means taking breaks. It means turning off the phone at night. It means investing in therapy, coaching, books, movement, meditation, whatever gets you centered and sane. Because your real portfolio isn't just your capital. It's your mind. And when you guard that, everything else gets easier. Final words. The trader you're becoming. Let's wrap this up the way we started, with truth. You are not broken. Even if you've blown accounts, even if you've cried after losses, even if you've doubted yourself 1,000 times, even if you've wanted to quit more times than you can count, you're not broken. You're becoming. Every chart you analyze is shaping your patience. Every trade you take is building your discipline. Every loss you log is teaching you something your ego didn't want to hear. You're here by accident. You're here because something inside you believes in a better version of you, not just as a trader, but as a whole human being. And this journey, it's not easy, but it's worth it. Because the trader who heals becomes unstoppable. Not because they win every trade, but because they no longer fear losing. They've faced their demons, they've walked through the fire, they've rebuilt their foundation, not on hype, but on wholeness.